Now you ended the last session talking about. Let me tell you about Mama Moosey, but I think you said you meant Mama Chuck. But we're gonna go back to Mama Chuck. Let's talk about Daddy Theodore Adler. And the way he died was with my mother, your oldest, on his leg.
Right.
And how old was he when he passed?
87.
Oh.
He was 87.
Okay.
Okay. But that was another ending of an era.
Right.
Because the physical backbone of the house was dead. So the behavior became different again, with the women being predominant and boy living on Third Street with his family. So I was married. Doris was pregnant. Jennifer was with Teddy. And Jennifer was married too. Okay. Now, Jennifer came to live. She moved into the house. She and Hamp. No.
I remember Hamp.
Let's see. No, she didn't move into the house right away. That was Doris was living in the basement, and that's where Doris stayed. And the house upstairs.
And we're talking about what house?
965 Iron.
Which is across the street or across
from 972 Iron, which was Boyd's house.
Boyd's house.
But he didn't live there now. They had moved over on 3rd Street.
And this all is in Pittsburgh.
Okay. All except 3rd Street. 3rd Street is over there off Chickamauga. Okay, now.
So
the Mama Moosey, Mom Chuck goes back to her house in Savannah.
Because she had been banned for acting out when she would get drunk.
But that was when Daddy was alive.
That's when Daddy was
alive. Now, so then it becomes really a little chaotic because Mama Chuck was always trying to tell Boy what to do with their mother. But Boy always came to visit his mother on Wednesdays.
And his mother is who?
Carrie Idley.
Also known as
Mama Chuck. Yeah, Mama Chuck and Boy are brothers and sisters.
So Mama Chuck was bossing Boy around.
Now she in Savannah. And she trying to tell Boy what to do about Mama in Atlanta in her own house. And she actually got her to come and stay in Savannah longer than Mama had ever done.
Mama Moosey?
Okay, on one of those times that she was in Savannah, she died.
Mama Moosey? Mama Moosey did die in Savannah.
And now here comes another. So then, here I go. I'm the one who's doing the logistics for getting the body back to Atlanta. Although Annabelle and Boy and Monica and everybody, they were over to their house in 3rd Street. But I'm the one doing the
logistics,
doing the really work. And I had to meet her body at Hartsfield with the undertaker. It wasn't Hartsfield Jackson then, it was Hartsfield. It's Hartsfield. That was my first time seeing them take anybody off of an airplane in a coffin.
An airplane from Savannah to
Atlanta. You had to go to the baggage place, and it was not as sophisticated. Sure. But Mama Moosey died in Savannah. And I got the dates in there in my little yellow folder, but that was a terrible time.
Why?
Because the female was really out of control. The older female.
What you mean?
Mom Chuck was screaming and hollering when we had. I know who really came after Mama. Mama Chuck by that time had stopped operating the nursing home and the school, and she was married to Mr. Rem Brown then, who was a little man who played a violin, who quoted biblical scriptures. He was a wonderful man too. Well, Mr. Brown, Mr. Green, and then Ned Williams. Ned was a very intelligent man. His family lived in Savannah.
And you're talking about her husband?
I'm talking about I'm talking about her three
Her three husbands?
Beyond Jack. Okay. Flower. Okay. Well, Ned and Mama Chuck stayed in the house next door to 965 when they first came to Atlanta because somebody was living in the 965 house. And I think Darcy probably moved upstairs then. But anyway, Darcy was always scared of the house.
Doris was scared of the house?
Darcy was kind of
wary of the house?
Darcy was kind of scary. Okay? And then after Mama died in Savannah, I think that was Darcy living in the house upstairs. Okay, Mama Dilla by that time had married Andy Tuggle, and they lived at 703 Florence Place, Northwest, which is a continuation of Westlake across what was then Bankhead, in a cute little house, little white house. Well, anyway, Mama Dear and Andy separated, and Andy moved out of the house and gave it to Mama Dear. And that was the wrong thing to do because there were always strange people in and out of that house with her. But I maintained contact with Andy for whatever reason. But anyway, anyhow, we went through a lot of changes. And
after Mama Musa died.
Mama Musa and Daddy were gone. And our real mainstay were gone. And we were like lambs without a shepherd. And I guess at that time, I really started realizing I have got to become a stronger person and take charge of my own life. It took me a while.
And Mila has been born. Auntie Mila had been born.
Auntie Mila was born. No. Well, when Mama Musi died, when Mama Musi died, both Mila and Al were born. Okay. They were here. Okay. Because both of them remember Mama Musi. No, they both don't. That was Mama Chuck that they both remember. Okay. But Mama Chuck and Ned moved to Atlanta into that house next door to 965. I'm trying to figure out who was living in that house. I think it was Dory and Charles and I don't know. It's okay.
So when Mom, you said no, I just want for the people. My mother was literally riding
on the leg of her great granddaddy, Theodore, when he passed.
And what was the song that he would sing?
The same like look at that.
They called it Booger Yam?
Booger Yam, whatever the song was. He would sing, shake his knee, and say how beautiful, how pretty the Booger Yam. It was a rhythmic little song he had, and she just loved it.
And she loved it. That's such a sweet story.
Yeah.
But that's where
how he loved her. I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you how strong control they were. when I got in labor with Terry to go to Hugh Spalding Hospital to have Terry on a Saturday night. I got in late. My water broke on a Saturday night. We had Gwen and I were gone somewhere to some kind of entertainment when my water broke for Terry.
Okay.
But my suitcase was not in High Point where we were living at that point.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not right either, because we were living in on Simpson Road when I was pregnant with Terry.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't. My suitcase was at Mamusi's.
Okay.
Because I figured I'd be at Mamusi's whenever my water broke.
In your plans, in your divine plan, you would be at Mamusi's. Okay.
And so Doris was having a club meeting in the house.
Okay.
And Doris said to me, "You would come. I knew you were going to do this to us." Because she was living in the basement at 965. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and pregnant with Ted. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we got my little suitcase and we went on to Houston. Mm-hmm. And I stayed in labor all that Saturday night. Mm-hmm. Your mother was born about 11:20 that Sunday, and during most of the labor, I could hear the choir singing in the church that was across the street from Hugh Spalding before they took me down to deliver.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so...
And Mama, Miss Carrie Island, who was the Sunday school superintendent at Area Board, went to church, went to the Sunday school that Sunday and made an announcement. She could not stay for Sunday school because her baby was having her first baby. Oh. And they all spent the early part of that Sunday morning in the waiting room of Hugh Spalding Hospital. After that baby was born, the nurses and everybody said, "You know, your family has been here off and on all night, having prayer meetings and everything." Everybody knew who Frances was and her grandmother, her great grandmother, and her mother, and her sister.
It sounds like y'all were really such a loving family.
We were very different than what we later became for whatever reasons. Okay. And I guess that was a painful part of just, but that was also adding husbands and their families and all these other folk interfering. It was just not good. But anyway, my Moose and those had prayer meeting, everything else they wanted to have. And at that time, Crystal, the hamburger place, was on Butler Street. Mm-hmm. And it was in the black community. So, that's when I realized that crystals were really good. Because
I like crystals.
Somebody gave me some crystals after I had Terry.
Oh, this is
They brought it to the hospital. They brought that food to the hospital. Because I stayed in the hospital 7 days. Oh. Because at that time, the obstetricians, it was a mandatory 7 days stay. Okay. But I didn't understand how deadly childbirth was for black women. Sure. But anyway, I went back after I got out of the hospital. I went to Irish Street and I stayed at Irish Street for 6 weeks.
With who?
With Mom Moosey. With Mom Moosey, because Daddy was... No, Mom Moosey and Daddy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's the whole thing. So Mom Moosey and Daddy. Mama Dear came from Florence Place over there came from work, she was at Grady. She was a licensed practical nurse at Grady by then, Mama Dear. So Mama Dear and Mama Chuck. But Mama Dear, Mama Chuck came from Savannah doing after. No, she was there at the birth. She must have gotten there the same day Terry was born. But anyway, the Mama Dear would come every day, and she bathed that baby. She molded that baby's head so she wouldn't be a pinhead. She washed the hair. I didn't have to do nothing but just lay in that bed
and recover.
Eat and recover. But it was what was supposed to happen. Yeah. And I've always been very thankful for that, because between Mama Chuck, Mama Dear, and Mama Lucy, okay, like with Terry, it was Mama Dear and Mama Chuck and Mama. Then with Mila, which would have been 4 years later, it was Mama Dear. And with Al, it was Mama Dear. I never had to go through it by myself. And it's probably why my health is as good as
I'm sure.
It is.
I'm sure.
And when Dad was alive, when Terry was first born, I was trying to wean Terry
off breast milk?
Off the bottle.
Oh.
No, yeah, off the bottle. And I was introducing her to the little plastic cup. And I was living at our street. Okay, with them. And Daddy was sitting on the front porch. And the baby kept crying and crying. And crying and crying and crying. The next thing I knew, Daddy had gone, walked down to the drugstore, gotten her a baby bottle, come home, washed the baby bottles and the nipples, boiled them in a pan, made a formula, poured it in the bottle, let it cool, came in there with me and the baby and said, "Now feed that baby."
He was not playing.
Mm-mm.
How did you feel about that?
I felt fine. Because nobody else could have done that but him.
Right.
Nobody could have done that but him. I would have said, I'd have fussed with Mama for a little while. It wouldn't have been for long. It wouldn't have been loud either.
Right.
But he said, "Now feed the baby." And I fed the baby.
Because the baby wasn't ready to be introduced to the cup yet.
And I'm following. I mean, you know.
Yes.
But I thank the Lord for him. I thank the Lord for my mom and my grandma and my great-grandparents.
So why were you at Ira Street instead of with your husband?
My husband had moved our furnishings and things to a what do you call it? To his mama's house, to one of those storage units.
Gotcha.
And he was staying with his mom.
Okay.
And dad. Okay.
Were y'all married though?
Yeah, but we had a formal wedding.
Yeah.
Okay, like the wedding was the 28th of June, 1957. We married at Area 1 United Methodist Church.
Wow.
Reverend Epps was the pastor of records.
Okay.
I was working at Booker T. Washington High School.
As a science teacher?
As a science teacher. And by her being so near the time for school to begin,
yes,
they said, "No, you can't go back. So you will have to stay here with us until I could, because Gwen did not have a steady job.
Gotcha. And
I didn't want to go stay with Miss Dansby.
Did y'all get along?
No. Well,
be honest.
I didn't know. No, that way of life was so much different from what my life had been. And and she had a sister, Ruby, who lived in the back apartment from who really had Odessa under her control. And Ruby was not one of the kindest people.
Okay. It was Ruby the older sister?
No, Ruby was the youngest, and she had lived in the north for most of her life, but she had controlled Odessa. Odessa also had a
Odessa is Gwen Ellison-Dansby's
mother.
Right.
But Odessa, but listen, Odessa was also had a sister named Bernice, and she was married to Mr. Turnipseed.
That's his name.
But his first name, but she was married to Mr. Turnipseed. But they didn't have any children. But Ruby tried to control Bernice too. But Turnipseed told her she could only control her where she lived.
Turnipseed was his name?
That was his last name, and I'm trying to think of what his first name. But Odessa was not the kindest person.
Okay.
And plus, at the time that we got married, Gwen Dansby was just getting out of the army, and he had been having his pay from the military sent to his mother. Sent to 11-15-47 in his mother's name, and she did not have a penny.
So who had the money?
She had spent it.
Oh Lord!
So that was a big mess, and it was just bad. It was sad, and I didn't respect them after. I really didn't expect. Although I did go and live with them for a while, because when Terry was a baby, when I did go to work at Fulton County in the 60s, I worked at Leonard Jean Campbell one school year while Terry was a baby. Well, I was at Leonard Jean Campbell 2 years because the position at Washington High had been filled. That was my aunt that I had. But anyway, I worked at the elementary school, which was Leonard Jean Campbell, over there off of Prior Street. And during that time, we moved in with Odessa and Prince. And it was, Terry was a baby, but we were supposed to be there just temporary. And we had applied to live in High Point, to get an apartment in High Point, which came through during, shortly after that time. But the way it all really ended was Terry was a baby, and Terry was staying every day with Odessa. Yeah, we had moved to Odessa. And Mama Moosey walked to the drugstore on McDaniel and Roy Street. And Odessa came in the drugstore while Mama was in the store. And Mama asked her, "Where's the baby?" And Odessa told Mama, "She at home sleep." And Odessa told Mama asked her, "With who? Who is at home?" She said, "No." She said, "I'm going to go back." Mamusi walked from McDaniel Street to Odessa's house, up that Fletcher Hill, got my baby out of Odessa's house, walked back to Irish Street, called me up at Fulton County Department of Family and Children's Services, told me I have your baby, and I am going to keep her until you can make a better arrangement. She's not going to be left at a house where a woman would be at a store on McDaniel Street. The baby in a house where it could catch a fire and kill the baby. And do you know nobody had any discussion? Nobody.
Had anything to say.
Except, okay.
Would you have ever left one of your children at home while you went to the store?
No.
How old was she?
She was a baby. She was like, she wasn't even a toddler. That was before Daddy died. Daddy was alive too. But Mom, both of them were alive.
Okay, so that's how y'all felt about each other. So let me ask you this. Okay. Because I know Auntie Mila and Mama Odessa were really close.
Oh, because when Mila came, Mila was a toddler when she started staying with Odessa during the day while I worked. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't understand this thing called day work.
Okay.
Odessa worked as a domestic for Miss Platty.
A white lady?
A white woman over in off of Northside Drive. Mm-hmm. Terry never would stay with her during that time because Terry, they had to go down some steps to go to the basement, and over the basement step they had this stuffed head of a moose up on.
Y'all have a history of being afraid of some stuff and some houses in the family.
Well,
Mama Moosey was scared of the house in Savannah where Mama Chuck lived. Mama, who else?
Your mama.
My mama was scared of the stuff.
Well, she was a child.
I get that.
But there was this moose. Mila never did realize what it was.
Okay.
Mila didn't realize what it was when I moved. But Odessa took them when she didn't tell me. Whenever she got called in to go work for Miss Platt, sure, she drove to that street off Northside Drive, and she worked, but she got home before I got there from DFAC. And when Mila one day was trying to show me a picture of the stuffed head in a book we were looking at, and she said, Miss Platty, she said, Miss Platty has one. And I said, who is Miss Platty?
That's how you found out, Grandma? That she was going to some white lady's house?
That she was working, taking my baby.
And you didn't like that either?
No.
At least she was being...
We had never had that kind of behavior in my family. There was never any kind of domestic workers in my family. And so then I began to learn a lot of other stuff. But also, I've always been very small. I mean, I've been filled out, but I've always been a petite person. Most of them were big fat women with big hips and big boobs. So, and they really tried to
push you around.
They tried to make me feel less than I was because they were hefty people. And in that interaction with me, both Ruby, now Bernice didn't. Bernice was a little different from them all. But Ruby and Odessa, little things that they would do and say.
I'm listening.
There has always been a difference in thin people in many African American families. There's always been a little some jealousy or a little inequality of of the big folk thinking that something was wrong with you when you were little, when you weren't healthy. And I think that still exists with a lot of these big people, huge people. Now, the reason they are overweight, that unspoken bias exists among people of color. But anyway, after the day of Odessa, of Carrie taking that baby out of my life, Terry never went back up there, but Mila did go. But the understanding was you won't leave the baby in the house, but you running off somewhere.
And you also want to take him to the misplaced.
So what she did, she started taking Mila all these places with her. And that's how, and Mila, Odessa liked a lot of lotions, Avon stuff. And Mila would come home smelling like all kinds of Avon stuff. That's how come she's so like that now and stuff. Lord, but I thank you for Odessa because she was there.
Yeah.
And Mila had such a relationship with Odessa.
And what about Uncle Aldous? Did he have a good relationship with them?
Mm-hmm. He loved, but Al related to Granddad, to Prince. Al really related to Prince. And Prince at that time was staying at home because I think he had gotten sick, so he was at home more. And when Al came, Al went to Miss Johnson. Went to Miss Johnson, who lives up the street from where your daddy grew up.
Okay.
Do you know the Johnsons that lived up on Eastern Street?
No, my girl.
Well, your daddy knows them because they had two daughters and they had a lot of brothers.
Okay.
But Miss Johnson up there kept Al mostly until he started to Central Daycare.
Okay.
And the way I got her with Miss Johnson's daughter Mary worked with me at DFAX. And she was telling somebody that her mom had 2 or 3 children and she needed just one more for her in-home childcare. And that's how Al went to Miss Johnson. Mr. Johnson, Miss Johnson, they were you wouldn't call them rigid, but they were
strict.
They were organized.
Okay.
She was clean, number one, and she fed them.
Okay.
She fed him. And then time came for him to go to Central. They integrated the child that Hank Aaron and Billy Aaron, she's an adult now, they'll take Cece.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Aaron and Hank Aaron never had children of their own. Hank had children by Barbara Lucas. Bill Lucas was Barbara Lucas' brother, who became the first black with the Falcons when they came.
Okay.
Bill Lucas, okay. Well, Hank Aaron was married to Barbara Lucas, Bill Lucas' sister. And they had 4 or 5 children, most of them boys. They were, when Hank Aaron first came to Atlanta to play baseball, you talking about hell in his life with Barbara, to the point of being at the stadium and she going off of him on him in public. Embarrassment.
I can't stand that kind of
Even
stuff. Don't go off on me in public.
They also
don't do it.
The children, once they got to school age, they came to St. Paul, as did Cece, who was the child of adopted child of what's her name, Billy Aaron. Now, Billy Aaron was married to Sam Williams when they adopted Cece.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but Cece and Billy Williams and Barbara, what was her name then? But they never had children. They adopted Cece, and then after Reverend Williams died, Hank Aaron married Billy, and I think they may have adopted Cece eventually, but see,
let's go back. So you met Gwen
I met Gwen at W.H. Problem. We went to the same elementary school.
That's right.
We lived in the same community too. He lived on Fortress Avenue, and I lived on Irish Street. In Pittsburgh.
So you knew each other as childhood friends.
Mm-hmm. And we were very close as childhood friends. Okay. We went all the way through elementary school, through Washington High School. And I really didn't date anybody else. And that was not cool.
Right.
Because he was a band member, and he was an excellent trombone player. And he was always messed with a whole lot of people. But that's why I say you need to learn something before you get married. But anyway, I always wanted to protect him because I could not stand how sad he would be over his life or over people at that time.
Because he was an only child as well.
No, he was the youngest of two children because Albert and David were Odessa's children from another man.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Johnny B was the child of Prince and another woman. But Johnny B lived in Cascade, 2 blocks over from where we live, and we lived on Highview with his family. They are wonderful. You really need to meet your cousins, those cousins.
Okay.
All of them. But
he would be sad about something?
Gwen Dansby was always sad because of whatever was going on within their household. Okay. And because people, if you were really darker than and a boy, people were not kind. And if you always have to fight and the struggle is there, it makes you a strange person. Sure. Plus, you're trying to be the prince of your family because of playing Odessa against Prince. See, he was the child of the 2 parents in the household. Gotcha. But anyway, we grew up in the same neighborhood. We went to the same elementary school. We went to the same high school. He went to the military. I went to Spelman. And when I went to Spelman and he went to Clark. And then when we were both sophomores, they said that college guys who registered for the draft could get their VA could get their finishing 2 years off, paid for.
Same thing they said when your dad.
And see, that was the Korean War.
Okay, Korean War.
Mm-hmm. And Gwen never left the country. Gwen served his 2 years in Huachuca, Arizona.
Mm-hmm. And when he was done, what happened?
He was done with that in May of 1957.
And what happened?
Then we got married June the 3rd of 1957.
So did he ever go back to school? But he went to school on scholarship for trombone.
2 years while before he went to the military.
Was he different after the military?
Yeah, well, he was different because, well, for me, well, he was different because partly about that money, but then also his temperament was more pronounced as being high-tempered and not having any skills to do work because he had a lot of jobs. He worked at Armalite. He worked at worked over there where his daddy was working partly. Couldn't survive that.
What was that?
He worked and then he went to MARTA. And MARTA was where he ended his life. Over there working, you know.
But while y'all were married in your formative years of the children being...
But there were no formative years because we got married. We got married in 1957.
Had you graduated from school?
Yeah, I graduated 20 days before we married.
Gotcha.
And see, that was anyway. We had not really lived together as a man and wife at any point until, because when I came directly out of college, graduated, spent a few days with Mama, then we got married. He was at the house with Odessa and Prince, and they were going through all that stuff about his money. And we had not really lived as an adult couple prior to our marriage, our children coming. With Terry coming in 1958, Myla coming in 62, and then Al coming in 66. Only thing that was constant was that I did not want my children born right up on top of each other. I wanted to make sure that each had the benefit of their individual parenting, and they had 4 years. But I did not realize, okay, children born that far apart, they become more attached to their peers than they do to their siblings.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Sure. But I had to learn that the hard way. Mm-hmm. But they also had benefit of their mother and not a nursing baby.
I don't understand.
Okay. There's a difference in children who's a toddler and a mama who's nursing a baby. Because that little toddler doesn't get what it's supposed to have.
Oh,
the attention is taken away with the baby.
Yeah.
And they all had their individual time.
Right. Isn't that good?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I always knew that because I really wanted 7 children.
Oh. You wanted 7 children.
I wanted 7 children, and I wanted to have the house that was in Savannah, a large house with an upstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about the relationship.
Well, I was always very close to Ellison-Dansby because I wanted him to be happy. I didn't want anybody to hurt his feelings. I didn't want him to have to cuss and fuss with people. I thought that I could change it, but I was immature.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm glad that I had my children with him because different things in each one of those children's lives were the best of men, are the best of men. And I'm thankful for that.
Sure.
Their good looks, their intelligence, because I always thought he was a real intelligent young person, but he got caught up in foolishness and didn't reap the benefits of what he was supposed to do, because he didn't do it. But I do appreciate the things that I learned from him as a man, number one. Although I hated the irresponsibility in him, the entitlement that he felt, because and the mistreatment that he felt at the hands of the not mistreat. It's called the ambivalence of a relationship within his family.
What does that mean? Who was ambivalent towards him?
You know, the biases that develop in families when there's jealousy of different family members, and different things are done to the offspring, the interaction, and how people cause pain.
And they caused him pain because they were jealous of him. Being
I think that number one,
his sibling,
his mother, but his daddy too. But when you don't treat everybody in the family equitably, and you see one being treated this way, one being treated another way, and you know something ain't right. It is something ain't right. And it causes a problem in some people thinking that they don't have to work for something, and they can, whatever they want, they can act out and have it.
So he was a spoiled brat a little bit.
He was a spoiled brat from Jump Street, but but that was his way of surviving.
Sure.
And that was his mama's way of surviving too.
And he was a talented spoiled brat.
And he was
could play trombone.
He was a talent.
Do you think he wanted to be a musician instead?
Yeah, I think he did. And he had a best friend, and the best friend had also grown up in Pittsburgh named Lloyd Terry. Lloyd Terry went from Atlanta to New York City and started him a band. But Lloyd Terry used to call us in the middle of the night when he was in trouble. Things weren't going right. He would call and talk to Gwen, and Gwen would help him to overcome whatever was happening in his life.
Like as a counselor. But never to play in the band.
He never played with an adult group. He had a friend named Marion Armstrong. They were good friends, but there was also jealousy between his talent and Marion Armstrong's talent. Marion Armstrong, both of his parents were in the family. Were parents of his two sisters, and there was not this push and pull of children who were not the other's offspring. And Marion was the male in that household. The others were girls. And
Marion's a man?
Marion is a man.
Thank you. Sorry, you had to let me know.
Marion is a man, but they were good friends. But Marion was a trombone player, but Al could outplay Marion all up and down the street.
Gwen could outplay.
Gwen could outplay Marion all up and down the street. Now they have some beautiful daughters. He married Frankie Coggins. Marion did. And Frankie, when I was at Spelman College, Frankie would always bring me some food on Sunday from her mama's house.
So let's go back to Spelman. What made you choose Spelman? That's where we're going to pick up for the next video. Hold on.